Let me ask you a question. If I were to ask you, what was your favorite thing about Selena, what would you answer? This is a question that I ask many Selena fans across a multitude of Facebook forums, which I'm a part of, and I'm sure that you are part of them too. Some people mention the multiple looks, her humbleness, her love for her family, her love for Chris, her love for her fans. And less than 10% of the people that answered mentioned her voice. And I think that's a problem. Hi everybody, I'm Pedro and I am here with a new Selena video. Please don't forget to subscribe. We've hit over 200 subscribers. I think that's really cool because I don't do this very often. I know this doesn't sound like a lot for YouTube terms, but it means a lot to me. That's a lot for me. I've never been very popular on social media, but there's one thing that I love talking about, and that's Selena. And if you love talking about Selena as much as I do, then this is the channel for you. Now, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people mention Selena's humbleness, Selena's smile, her looks, her fashion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as being their favorite thing about Selena, because that is what set her apart from other musicians of any kind. She was much different. She was very humble. She was very loving of her fans. She obviously took very good care of her family and her husband, and she took good care of her fans. Herself, she wasn't distrustful of people. She was a good friend, and that's actually ultimately what ended up being her demise, is her trying to be a good friend. All of that being said, I think that by and large, Selena has not received her due. I think that for a large part of her career, and even after she passed away, she hasn't been thought of as a vocal powerhouse as she deserves to be, and how other, even female singers, have received their due. Now, I might be a little bit biased, but I honestly believe that Selena was a great vocalist, a great singer. And I'm not just talking about that she had great music, which she did, but I am specifically talking about Selena's voice and what she did with that voice and how she expressed herself musically. I think she was one of the best. Now, obviously, I've always thought that, but one of the things that has made me feel that she hasn't gotten her due is because as I watch new people who are reacting on YouTube to her music, a lot of their reactions are similar. They are surprised as to what a good singer she is. And so what that tells me is that we as Selena fans haven't been really communicating how much of an amazing vocalist Selena was. Any of these YouTube reactions focus on the fact that she's a legend, and of course they've heard about her, and some of them have even seen the Selena movie, and still they'll play, Como la Flor at the Astrodome or some other performance, the disco medley, and they'll react to it, and they are blown away by the level of strength in her voice. Obviously, for those of us who've seen those performances, we love those performances and we know she's powerful, but it shocks me a little bit to see the reaction of other people reacting to Selena's voice, because to me, that's why I became a fan, because she has an amazing voice. And now I call myself a fan, but I'm a fan of many things, but I don't necessarily buy their shirts or follow them closely. Selena is a different thing for me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you. I was never a fan of other musicians or other singers or other artists or other TV shows or anything like that to this level. And it was because of Selena's charisma and smile and fashion and all of these multifacetedness that made me a super fan. But as far as how I initially became interested in Selena, it wasn't her charisma or her smile or how she looked or whether her hips were wide or any of that stuff. It was her voice. The other thing that's been happening that I've been observing is that there have been a lot of articles talking about her fashion, her style, and how it's iconic and it's coming back and how you can recreate it. But not a lot of articles, particularly for music-driven magazines, that talk about her powerhouse vocals, that would really give her her due. And I don't think this is a new phenomenon. I think this is something that was happening even when Selena was alive, that she really wasn't given her due. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that Tejano was not seen as a high class of Latin music. The Ricky Martins, the Shakiras were the ones that were gracing the covers of magazines, of teen magazines that were of the same age around Selena's younger years, Selena was relegated to magazines that had to do with Tejano, that were really more about the northern border if you were in Mexico, or the southern border if you were in the United States. And she really wasn't given that prime time that she deserved. Now you might be asking yourself, but how can that be? Selena sold tons of records. She won every conceivable award that she could win. And that's true, but she should have won more. There should have been more accolades in her lifetime because she was that good of a singer. And I'll give you a really clear example. Selena was nominated for 2 Grammy Awards for her last 2 albums. That was for Selena Live, for which she won the Grammy, and she was nominated again for Amor Prohibido. She lost that album to Vicky Carr. Now, Vicky Carr's album, if you listen to it, she has a beautiful voice. She was a wonderful musician back, I believe, in the 70s, where she sang in English and started doing Spanish, similar to Linda Ronstadt, who had, a great career as an English musician and then became a singer in Spanish. Selena's music, though, in comparison to Vicky Carr's, is literally decades apart. Vicky Carr is doing old style boleros. The musicality of the songs is a little, dated, even for the early 90s. And the music is fairly old. She's just doing covers, essentially, of older songs, which was typical of aging stars of any genre, that you sort of do covers and you redo old classics with a new style. Selena's Amor Prohibido album was definitively her best studio recording, I think. It had songs Amor Prohibido, it had No Me Queda Más, El Chico del Apartamento 512, Si Una Vez, Biri Biri Bam Bam. These are all hits that were massive radio hits that have since become standards. I have yet to hear any song of Vicky Carr to be able to have lasted this long or to be mentioned in Rolling Stone's top albums of all time, which Selena's album now is. So at the time, the Grammy voters thought that Vicky Carr's album, which again, I'm not taking away anything from Vicky Carr, she definitely is a fantastic singer. She had won multiple Grammys at that point, but definitely, I believe, just speaking musically, and I know that I'm biased, but I would love to hear from those of you who might feel differently. I think Selena's album was revolutionary at that point. Over the fact that we're talking about it 25 years now, it's still charting. Those songs are still charting. This is no longer because Selena died. This is because her music was good. And I believe her music was good because of her voice. So let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. A lot of people are going to say, well, AB was really smart in being able to create music that appealed to people. And that's true. AB was a fantastic musician, a fantastic music writer, and he had lots of successes outside of Selena. After Selena passed away, he did music producing and music writing for several artists, but he was never able to achieve the level of success that he had with Selena, because I believe his music with Selena had a special power, and that was Selena's voice. And you can hear this too when you hear somebody else singing one of Selena's old songs, such as Baila Esta Cumbia, La Carcacha, Biri Biri Bam Bam. You don't get the same kind of magic that Selena would put into it. And I'm not a purist. I'm not that kind of person that says, oh, the original artist is always the best. I've heard many, many, many covers that are absolutely fantastic. And actually, I think the best song that people tend to cover the best are No Me Queda Más, or those kind of ballads that are a little bit easier to transfer from one singer to another. But once it comes to the joyfulness and the growl that Selena would put into some of her songs, it's really hard to mimic. And so AB was writing those songs for her voice, and she was able to play with that immensely and be able to create a style that really made those songs iconic. I don't think that the music by itself would have become iconic had Selena not been singing it. I can give you a really clear example of that. If we listen to Baila Esta Cumbia, it's a pretty simple song.
Baila esta cumbia un ritmo, ritmo sin igual, nadie se quede sentado.
Nice song, as written. Now, obviously, the live version added a lot of musical elements to it, but the recording of Selena singing Baila Esta Cumbia versus what Selena did live were eons apart and just musically light years ahead with what she did in the recording studio.
Vamos a gozar, baila esta cumbia, mueve así, todos las manos en alto y griten con locura. Hey, 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 ánimo, hey, 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 hey,
recording studio, she was highly controlled by her brother, by her dad, who would tell her how to pronounce words, how the music went, etc. Selena on stage, that was her. That was her singing, playing along with the music, and she was able to do things with the music that really didn't come across in the recordings. I mean, I think there's a reason why her one and only Grammy came from Selena Live, where she was just singing herself, and you could hear the growl in her voice, the power in her voice, the way that she would be able to musically dance with a song. Whether you could see her dancing or not, you could hear her dancing with the song. And I don't mean that you could hear literal dancing. I mean is that she would take a melody and be able to sing above and below it and add little additions to it all throughout to make the song more interesting. Now compare that to something like Dreaming of You, where she sang barely above a whisper, and you can hear the sort of lovelorn, wispy, breathy, almost teenage innocence in her voice that she was able to portray throughout the song until the last few notes, where she sort of has a little bit more of exuberance.
Night when all the world is sleeping, I stay up and think of you. And I wish on a star that somewhere you are thinking of me too.
And compare something like that against something like El Toro Relajo, which is a completely mariachi song, and she just sings completely with the full throat, full voice, full chest out there, straight on, and it almost sounds like she is winking at you as she's singing.
Aguas que ahí tiene un toro, ese relajo. Escóndete tras las trancas, chatita, que viene bravo. Y aviéntame tu rebozo, mi vida, pa' capotearlo.
So what that's able to show me is that as far as an artist, as far as a vocalist, she had a huge range, being able to sing different kinds of songs with different kinds of emotions. If you think of a lot of famous artists, they kind of have that thing that they're known for. They're either kind of sing sad songs or they sing happy songs. It's very strange to find artists, vocalists, who are able to switch on a dime, not just with different emotions, but as Selena did, with completely different styles of music. The other part about Selena's voice that I just absolutely love is just the immense power that she was able to bring on. All you have to do is listen to a song like Bidi Bidi Bom Bom, the beginning. Time and time and time and time again that she sang that song, she was able to deliver it with the same amount of power throughout the song, regardless as to how long she had been singing live. And I think a lot of her power in her voice, even that little gravelly, growly aspect of it, had to do with all of the years that she had to sing in noisy bars where people weren't necessarily paying attention, or the sound system wasn't particularly good, or the acoustics weren't done well. And so she had to get people's attention somehow. And so she developed these huge lung capacity that she was able to use when she was singing, I think. And what I love is that she's able to switch back and forth, like in something like No Me Queda Más, she's able to switch back and forth between that wispy, soft, under her breath, even head voice type of singing to just an absolute belt.
Darte felicidad, no me queda más. Si tu regreso hoy sería una posibilidad. Y esto que no era amor, lo que hoy niegas, lo que dices que nunca pasó, es el más dulce recuerdo de mi vida.
And I don't want to make it seem like, well, nobody does that. Of course, a lot of people do that. Particularly Broadway performers have to sing, dance, and act all the time, be able to emote, be able to give the attention to each song that the moment calls for. Here's the difference with Selena and them though. Most performers on Broadway, most performers that you see on stage have many years of training behind them and many hard hours in rehearsing. And so they don't go out there and just do this all on their own. There's somebody helping them along the way and coaching them along the way, and sometimes many years before that, to be able to achieve that level of performance. For Selena, this all just came naturally. And I think that's so freaking awesome. You know, when we think about of the powerhouse vocalists of our lifetime, Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, you know, Adele, they have a multitude of people who are looking out after their voice, who are helping them be able to figure out how to be able to get to where they need to go through vocally. Selena was very early in her career when she passed away, but she had already achieved a certain level of gravitas in just her own music and just her own singing to be able to demand to be thought of as a powerhouse vocalist. And I 100% guarantee you that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, if you're able to say, do you remember that singer Celine Dion? That somebody's going to say, oh yes, I remember. She had a great smile. And if somebody's able to say, do you remember Whitney Houston? And they'll say, yeah, I remember she had great looks. People are going to talk about their voice. And I think that Selena's legacy should include that. Yes, she was and had all of those other things that made her really special and made her stand up above other, you know, similar artists. But the fact is that Selena, even if she was 300 pounds or 100 pounds, if she didn't smile, if she wasn't nice to her fans, she still had a talent that didn't need any embellishing because she had that level of importance to her voice. And I don't think we should ever forget that. And I know I'm not alone in thinking this. The Grammys are actually giving her a Lifetime Achievement Award this year in 2021. But it feels a little hollow and a little hypocritical of the Academy. Because when her album Dreaming of You was released, they couldn't find one single category to award what was her last recordings, which I think some of them were absolutely fantastic and on par with any other work that has won a Grammy during those times. So I don't think that there's really any excuse for the Grammys to not have found a single category that they could have at least nominated Selena in for Dreaming of You and for subsequent work that was released afterwards, but particularly for Dreaming of You because she had been working so hard, because it showcased the incredible range that she had to be able to go from something like an album like Amor Prohibido to, you know, a song like Dreaming of You or I Could Fall in Love. And in the album Dreaming of You, there were new songs that were all in mariachi style. They were completely years apart, different from the work that she did in her English album. So I think that there would have been enough content in there for them to have found one single song to nominate. So, you know, Grammys, I guess it's better late than never. I think you should have nominated Selena for a lot more times. I think she should have been in the top categories. And I guess 25 years after the fact is better than not recognizing it at all. But we, as Selena fans, need to band together and remind the rest of the world that Selena was one of the very, very best that we've ever had.